I have been stressing about making this vlog for like 2 weeks now. It's been doing my head in because I've got this amazing story that I want to share with you about an experience I've had over the last month, and I just didn't know how to do it, and I wanted to go all Matt D'Avella on you, but the more I've thought about it, the more I realise, as much as I love Matt D'Avella, I'm not Matt D'Avella, and that's not my style. So I've got a story to tell you, and I think I'm so excited. I think I've figured out the way I'm going to tell you the story, and I couldn't be more happy about the way this is going to go, I hope. And it's been quite an amazing experience that I think may have had the power to change my life, because for the last month, for all of the days of November, I gave up all refined and processed sugar. Now, the main problem I've had is that I couldn't work out when I was going to actually be able to film all of this stuff in order to tell the story about what giving up sugar for 30 days did for me. And it was amazing. And what I've realised is that I'm just going to have to take you with me throughout my week, everywhere I go, and give it to you in snippets and tell the story that way. But actually, I think this might work out quite nicely. I'll tell you one thing, the decision to quit sugar did not come lightly, I can tell you that much. It was actually the result of the car crash that I was involved in the summer, and the fact that I couldn't curb the snacking habit that I'd built up over time of just eating whatever I wanted whenever I want because I could burn it off. It started to not be the case. So, for pretty much the first time in my adult life, I noticed that I was losing shape and putting on weight, like my metabolism was slowing down. Coffee, Mary? So, for the 30 days in November, I resolved to quit all processed, all refined sugar from my diet to see what would happen to me and what would happen to my training. The problem was I just didn't know what processed and refined sugar was in my diet, so that was the starting point. Well, first up was the drinks that I drink, and in this case, I drink a lot of squash, in particular Ribena. I had to find an alternative for that. Then there was the sugar that I have in my coffee every now and then, and bear in mind, I only have one coffee a day, and I don't have any sugar in my tea, but it is still sugar that I can afford to cut out, so... Now, this one is the one I thought would be absolutely the hardest to cut out, but as it happens, it wasn't as hard as I thought. Because I have ketchup on pretty much everything. I love the stuff, I'm not ashamed to admit it. It's just my favourite and it always has been. But it has a lot of sugar, and even this one here is reduced 50% less sugar and salt. Still not good enough. I needed something, an alternative that was even less than the 50% there. So I'll put this here as well. And the last thing, and potentially the most challenging when you work somewhere like a school, is that I had to try and cut out snacks, and that means biscuits, cake in the staff room, puddings after the dinner. It is an absolute minefield when you work somewhere like that, and I'm not knocking it, it's an amazing bonus to have. But it's something that I just turn to in any type of energy dip. I just go to the cake or a snack or a biscuit and just grab it and eat it because I know it will give me the sugar high and I know that I could burn it off. But that's not good enough anymore for me. So the reduced salt and sugar ketchup went, replaced with no added sugar ketchup. Ribena was gone as well, replaced with crafted fruit juice with only natural sugars. Sugar in the coffee, gone too. That's right, it's this time in the AM, not the PM, and we're heading up to Mary's family up north in the car. Early days, but the one last thing is, to avoid snacking when I was at school, I turned a lot to these and than these, probably eating about 3 apples a day and maybe 1 to 2 bananas a day, just to get that, just to get the energy, but also to get that natural sugar that I was allowed. So I needed that little bit of sweetness, and something weird happened, but we'll get to that later on. First item on the agenda, weigh yourself. Now I know what you're thinking, that is not heavy. Well, I appreciate that, but I'm a small person, and that is actually verging on the side of overweight for me, but not overweight, but overweight for me. The one bright spot on the otherwise bleak, what I would call it, landscape is that we do cook pretty much all of our meals from scratch with fresh ingredients, so that we know there's no hidden sugars, it's not a processed meal. I mean, do we eat or buy the odd shop-bought pizza? Sure, but that would be the exception, not the rule. Come on, bum. Now, onto the month itself. I guess the first thing that is important to tell you is I survived. I'm here. And there were points, let me be honest with you, in the month that I didn't feel like that was going to be the case. This was one of the biggest tests I've ever done, and I did not expect that. I'd actually say the first 4 or 5 days were easy, because the novelty factor was there, and my willpower was really, really high. So the fact that I was eating fruit and not taking the snacks in the staff room wasn't bothering me at that point. But then days 6 to 11 happened, and they might have been the most torrid in my entire life. Okay, that may be an over-dramatisation, but it would be fair to say that nothing that I did could satisfy the hunger that I had. I honestly felt like I was going through starvation, and how was I, Mary?
Well, I was suffering as a result.
Mary was suffering from that because I was in a dark place.
Tough time.
Yeah, but then you look back in hindsight and a few interesting things happened. The first revelation was the improvement in my quality of sleep, and I only realised when I got to about day 8 that from about day 3 I'd been sleeping so much more soundly. You know, I'm a wriggler, and I wasn't remembering what my sleep. Yeah, amazing. And the other interesting thing, and remember this all comes with the benefit of hindsight, because I didn't necessarily notice it immediately in the moment, that the fruit I was eating was tasting even more sweeter, and I was putting it down to just the apples that we were buying at that point. But when you look into it, when you do a bit of research, apparently after a while of not eating processed and refined sugar, your taste buds recalibrate to make all of the natural sugars in your diet even sweeter. And then after day 11, something just happened. It was like a switch was flicked, and all of those cravings and all of that intense hunger and the moods, they just went. And suddenly I felt like I was on top of it, and I had control of it. And the only thing I can liken it to is it being in a tumultuous storm at sea in a boat, and it's choppy waters all around you, and then the storm breaks and suddenly you're in just really calm seas, and you feel like you've broken out of the other side. And at that point I just felt like I've got this, like I really am in control of this. And yes, I was still hungry. There were still points when I went to bed at night feeling a little bit hungry, but it was controllable, and that was the point I knew I had this. And once you make that breakthrough, you start to focus less on the hunger and pain and suffering. I know, yes, first world problems, but you get to focus on some of the other things that are happening with your body. Like, for example, I realised I had just a beautiful energy balance throughout the day. From start to finish of that day, I felt in control. There were no longer those highs and lows, the crashes after lunch where you feel really tired. It was really even, and that had another huge knock-on benefit. It meant that training became really easy, and it didn't matter at whatever point in the day that I needed to train. I just had the energy to do it. I didn't have to exercise any willpower whatsoever. So I started finding myself getting up extra early in the morning because I wanted to train, and not worrying about training when I get home from work each evening because I wasn't using willpower, and suddenly I was enjoying it and I felt pumped. And it's not that I don't enjoy training, I was training twice a day and enjoying it, and really was no skin off my nose suddenly. And just like that, in what felt like the blink of an eye, the month was over, and I really feel like I learned a hell of a lot about myself. So what are the next steps? The first lesson, and probably the most importantly for me, is I'm not going back. I'm not going back to how it was. I will add sugar back into my diet because I'm not going to lie, I love a cake, but I have proven to myself how psychologically strong I can be, and that's something that's probably as important, if not more, than the physical side of the training. That part's been brilliant. Secondly, I want to go back to that feeling of feeling energized all of the time when I'm training, feeling good, feeling strong, feeling happy. I loved it. And not only that, I loved it in my everyday life. I felt really great all of the time, just had that energy, and I need to go back to that. I need that in my life now. And finally, as an unintended consequence, I guess, I did a weigh-in, and have a look at the results here. I think I lost an unintentional 2 to 3 kilograms, and I wasn't cutting down what I ate at all. The only thing that I stopped was snacking on sweet foods and switching it to fruits and some savoury snacks. That was it. There was no change other than that, and the weight still dropped off me and I toned up. So if you are thinking, should I cut sugar out of my life? I can't make that decision for you. What I can do is I can advise that maybe giving it a month of trying to cut it all out would be hugely beneficial for you, not only physically, but psychologically. You can always go back to it, but it feels like you break the back of it when you go a month without it, and I can now pick and choose when I eat sweet stuff. I'm strong enough to do that, whereas perhaps I wasn't before. My sleep has improved, my training has improved, my overall life feels like it's improved, my energy balances, and I'm just, I'm really, really happy that I did it. That was one more step to callousing my mind and making me even stronger and in control, and maybe that's what it's all about. Full disclosure, I am going to eat cake this weekend, but it's my choosing and it's my willpower I'm exercising. I'll see you on Tuesday for the tutorial, and guess what? This time next week, we're flying to Oz. Cannot wait. See you soon.